Hi, it's James from Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today we're going to take a look at Zone Wars, published by Free League Games. And this can be played up to 4 players, but it also can be played solo, so it can be 1 and 4 players. Now, the base game here can only be played up to 2, so it can be 1 to 2, but if you get the expansion, you can go up to the 4. Now, this is going to be played in a post-apocalyptic future where there's mutants all over the place and tons of mutated hazards that exist in this world. So this game here is going to be based on the Mutant Year Zero RPG and also the video games that are out there. And Free League made the RPG, and I love Free League's RPGs. And they made a couple other board games in the past, so I was super excited to see this and get this to the table because I like the narrative that Free League Games is able to set up and the really cool world building. So I was really excited to actually play this on a board with miniatures. And let's just go ahead down the table here. I'm going to give you a really brief overview of how the game plays, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to give you my final thoughts. Alright, so this is Zone Wars. Zone Wars is a skirmish battle game for 2 or more players that takes place in the Mutant Year Zero setting. Previously explored in RPG and video games, players each take control of a small group of stalkers in the post-apocalyptic wasteland, the Zone. And they search for artifacts from the old world so they can survive and perhaps thrive in this new world. Now, the base game here is going to come with 2 factions. It's going to come with 5 different miniatures or characters for each faction. And if you want to play with more than 2 players, you need to get the expansion to be able to get up to 4 players. So for the base game, it's just 2 players. And for most scenarios, you're going to be running 3 characters. So you're going to have to pick from your 5 which 3 you want to run, which gets some variability in your strategy in your squad that you're going to place into the game. Now you're also going to get this cool terrain here that you can build with the game, and the expansion comes with more terrain. You'll put this out here, and this will create unique battle scenarios here where you're going to be able to run from cover to cover or have to deal with unique line of sight strategies that you're going to employ there to keep your guys alive during the game. Now there's tons of components with this game. You're going to have your base dice. These are dice you're going to roll in the game here for most everything. And then if you have equipment, you're going to have some of these year dice that you can roll. Now on these dice, there's going to be, the number 6 is going to be this hazard symbol here. And then you're also going to have this biohazard symbol here for 1. Other than that, they're going to be numbered on the dice. We'll go over that stuff in a minute. And this is also a miniature game, so you're going to have a measuring ruler here. You don't need a tape measure in here, but you could use one if you wanted to. This one's going to show short, medium, and long distances. That's all you really care about in this game itself. You're also going to have these faction tokens, and you're going to need to provide a cup or a bag. It doesn't come with a cup or bag, so you're going to basically take one of these tokens for each of your squad members, throw them in there, and then one for each of your opponents. You're going to throw them in there, and you'll set any extra aside. So in this scenario, you're only using 3, so we'll set those extras aside. And then you're going to be putting in some of these zone hazards. These ones here are included in the cup with the action tokens. If you draw these guys, they're going to make you have to draw a zone card in the game. And whoever is the last player to activate is going to be affected by this. And they're all different things. Like this one here is Ravenous Devourer. This one's actually going to put a token out on the board here, and you're going to have to either pass or fail here. Pass the Devourer on any location on the battlefield. If you fail, place the Devourer token in the base control. So now you're going to have to deal with it either on you or something else, and this is going to be a monster on the board that you're going to have to deal with. But there's a lot of other hazards in this game, good little mixture of hazards that you can run into throughout the game. You're also going to have some damage tokens here. There's going to mark your damage on your tokens or your characters. You're going to have some of these M points. Now, every player is going to start with 1 M point. These things are good. You can spend up to 3 M points in one action if you want to do some special abilities that will help you throughout the game. We also have these artifact tokens, which in a lot of scenarios are out there, and they're going to be what you're trying to go after. We have these victory points here, which is going to be what you're going to want to win most scenarios in here. And we have, here's the monster tokens, and we have a direction token for when things are necessary for that. And we have these experience tokens, and you can play this game in a campaign too. So that's pretty cool. And you can also play this game solo, which is pretty unique for a miniatures game. So those are the different tokens you can get. You're going to have 5 miniatures from the other faction that you can play too, and they're pretty neat. They're all going to have their own cards that go with them and their own player powers and unique abilities. So, for example, here we have Danko. So Danko is going to have ranged ability, so it's going to roll 3 yellow dice for ranged. It's going to have melee ability of 3, so roll 3 dice for that. It's going to have a survival ability of 5. So this is going to be when these zone cards come out or other things come out, you're going to do survival checks, and you're trying to roll a 6 to be able to pass them. And then the health down on the bottom. Also, everyone has starting gear and mutation cards. So the starting gear for this one's going to be a scrap pistol and diving helmet. And the mutation cards are going to be spores and then a random physical mutation that they can play. So, for example here, this one's going to have these 2 pieces of equipment here. So armor, so when you roll to save, it gets +2 to that, to its save. And long range, so this one's going to get a +1 to its ranged attack rolls, which will be those black gear dice, not the yellow dice. And then this is the base mutation. You also get a random mutation. A lot of these mutations are going to have this little arrow symbol. So you're going to, once you spend this, you're going to turn it to a side because you only spend this once per round. Once the round ends, you'll get to turn this back and use it again for the next round if the character's still around. Now the characters here, you see the stats on here. Once this character specifically gets to 4 wounds, it's going to be downed. And once the character gets back up, it's going to be on the bloody side. Now, it is possible when the character is down to finish it off the rest of the way. So you do 4 more damage, it's out of the game. So characters have a total combined health throughout the game of 4 for this side and 4 for this side. We'll go over what happens when you're downed here in a minute. Now, in this scenario, one player is going to take 10 of these artifact tokens and just drop them on the board. And they're going to go in random places here on the board. And these are going to be the things that you're going to be going after in the first scenario, which is called Throwdown. Now, there's multiple different scenarios you can play in the base game here, and you can play through them as a campaign, but for your first game they recommend Throwdown. There's going to be 4 different deployment zones in Throwdown. It could be here, 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 or here, so you could play up to 4 players with the Throwdown module, so any of the corners you can deploy into. And once you pick your corners and you deploy into, it has to be different than your opponent, you're ready to go. Now, again, in the base game, you get 2 factions, so you can only start with those 2 factions at most. So, basically, with this one, you can have up to a 4-player brawl if you want with all the models out there. Squads of 3 are a lot of fun, but 5 is going to be a much longer game. If you're going to play with all 5, then make sure you put all 5 of those tokens into the cup there for you. Now this game is going to go round by round until the objective of the scenario is met and someone wins. Now scenarios have different end games here. Some of them have specific trigger cards that need to be drawn, so the game ends for this scenario, which is throwdown, when the 4th trigger card is drawn, or when models from only one faction remain on the battlefield. Then count victory points to determine the winner. In case of a tie, the player with the most artifact tokens or cards, artifact cards is going to win. In the case of you still have a tie for this one, both players will win. Now, the meat of the game here is going to be on your turn. You have 2 options. You can take an action or you can do Overwatch. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to pull one of these tokens here. Once everyone is activated, you'll refill this cup and start again until the end of the game is met. Now, in this case, the Gen Lab tribe is going to get to go first. Now, I could pick any one of these models that I want and activate them. Once I activate them, I'm going to put this little token beside them to show that they've been activated. Now, there's 2 different things I can do, take an action or Overwatch. If I do Overwatch, that means I can fire at a later turn as long as I don't get damaged, and I'll place it on this target side here so that you know that I did that. The other things I can do is I can move and attack. So I can move a medium movement. So let's say I move here, and then I can attack, but there's no one here to move and attack to. I can do aimed fire, so I can do a base move, which I can move just the distance of my base forward, just so I can pivot and get myself lined up. Now, one thing I didn't mention, in Zone Wars, your facing does matter. So you have 180 degrees from the front of the model here, unless it states otherwise, that your range of fire and attack is. And you will get a bonus if you can sneak up behind an enemy and get them from behind. But aimed fire is basically you get a base move, and some of the weapons will say aimed fire, and those are special weapons that you can use for that. You can also charge. If you're going to charge, you can make a straight movement for a long distance. Now, if you're charging here, you're going to need to get into base contact with another model here. So, because charge lets you charge and then do a melee attack. So, where the first action, move and attack, lets you move and either fire or attack with a weapon. Charge lets you move really far and do a melee attack if possible. The other thing you do is sprint. So I could sprint this model all the way up here, maybe just to try to get to this artifact here. And then I would show that I activated it. So then I could also activate a mutation module. So there's going to be these mutation modules that I showed you. So here, this is warning call, reduce damage from an incoming attack on another friendly model by 1 per M point spent. Now you can never spend more than 1 or more than 3 M points. So, and you'll get these M points. You start with 1 in the game, and you'll get these ones from resolving combat and pushing. And I'll show you that in a second. You could also recover. You could, when a model's broken, so it loses all its health, and it's not on the wounded side, it's going to become broken. So you're going to lay it down here, and you're going to try to roll to see if you can stand the model back up on its activation. That's all you can do. Even if you fail, the model's going to be turned face up, and in the next turn, the model can stand up, but it will be put on its wounded side. Now, when it's on its wounded side, if it takes enough damage here to be downed again, it's out of the game. As mentioned, though, if you have a downed model there, an opponent can still fire on it. And that model can still take enough damage. If it takes enough damage there, it can actually be out of the game before it can even stand up. There's also an assist recovery, which is the same idea, except for another model can assist to try to stand up that model. And you also have simple and complex operations. Now, through all different mod or scenarios in the game, you can have to do different things like access like a computer and different things. The simple operation is going to allow you to do a medium distance and then perform the operation, where a complex operation is only going to allow you to go that short distance to complete the complex operation. All right, so just giving you a brief overview of how to, the idea of this game here, we're going to do a couple situations here. We're going to do a melee attack and we're going to do a ranged attack. All right, so some rules for attacking. In order to make an attack, the model must have the target within range of the weapon or mutation they are using, and base contact for melee. They must be within their line of sight. Unless the weapon or mutation states otherwise, they need to basically be at line of sight. Now, line of sight in here is going to be similar to Warhammer. You're going to go down to the level of the miniature and see if you can physically see the other miniature. And you have to be within their 180-degree forward arc. So you have to be facing the thing you're trying to shoot at or attack. So a couple basic things for attacking. You're going to have to indicate the target model and the attacking model, stating which weapons or mutations will be used. You're going to check range and line of sight to the target. You're going to take a number of base yellow dice equal to the fire's range stat or melee attack if they're doing that. And then you're going to add gear dice for any of the equipment that they're going to be using that is valid for it. So range for range, melee for melee. And you're going to roll the total dice and see if you can get any of the sixes. If you get any of the sixes, you're going to count those up, and that's going to be the damage that's inflicted. And you're going to decide whether to push it. So let's do this example real quick, and then we'll go into pushing. So we're going to go in, and we are going to try to fire with Stratton here. And Stratton's base range here is going to be 5. So 5 yellow dice. So get 5 yellow dice right here. So that's what we're getting. Well, we have to fire with something, and they're going to fire with the scrap rifle. Now, the scrap rifle has an unlimited range, and it has a +2 in aimed fire. So I'm going to get 2 of these gear dice, and then I'm going to roll all these dice. Now, what I'm looking for here is going to be not these things. So I'm looking for 6s here, and I didn't get any. So what I could do is I could just say, well, that's horrible, and move on, or I can push it. So basically what's going to happen is I'm going to be able to re-roll my dice. But I'm not going to be able to roll any dice that show these symbols, so these symbols here, or the hit symbol. Why wouldn't I really want to re-roll that? So let's say I do want to push it. So I'm going to re-roll these. And look at that. I didn't get any hits. So what happens? Well, what's going to happen is if I rolled any of these on here, when pushed, my weapon's going to take damage. And I'm going to take damage here and place it on the weapon here. And once I hit a certain amount, my weapon can be actually destroyed. So the other thing is, these are good. These ones are good. I did hit the opponent, but for every single one of these rolls, I'm going to get a M point. So here I'd get 3 M point. Let's redo this roll here to see if I can actually do some hits. So, wow. We're just going to roll until I get some hits because I'm really bad at rolling. Okay, so there's a hit. And let's say I got an M point. I got 2 hits here. I'm going to push it so I can get some of those M points. I do take damage to my weapon, but I did do 2 hits and I gained 1 M point. So now I have struck the enemy for 2 points. Now what can the enemy do? So if we look at this character card here, we can see if they have any armor here at all. And this one happens to not have any armor. But if they did, they would roll the dice and see if they can get any 6s to block the damage. Now there are some things to keep in mind in here. So there's some modifiers in here. You're going to get +1 if the attack used a charge action. So if I used a charge action, which is run up to a long and then get into melee, I'm going to get +1. I'm also going to get +1 if the model is in base contact with 2 or more enemies. And this is going to be melee also. So I could go into like sort of a berserker thing because I'm in trouble. Um, I could get a +1 for attacking from an elevated position. So if this guy was instead way up here, and I did have line of sight to this one, I would get a +1, and a +1 from attacking the model and it's from behind. So you can get some bonuses in that. Now, a couple things, and we'll wrap this up because I'm just giving you an idea of the game here. Melee functions the same way. You're going to take a look and see what their melee weapon is. And in this case, this character here is going to have 4 yellow dice for melee. So we'll get 4 yellow dice for melee here. But this one has the melee weapon of a club. It's going to have +2 and knockback. And knockback here, you're going to knock your opponent back here. And if it runs into any terrain or stuff, they're also going to take a damage. But I'm going to roll these dice here. Wow, that was a little better, but damage to my weapon again. I'll go ahead and push it. And that was sort of worth it here. Got a damage on my weapon, but I also got an M point, and I did 2 damage to the opponent here. Other things that are cool here is when you pick up these artifacts, you're going to get these artifact cards. And, you know, they can be just, they're points. So this is points at the end of the game. Starting weapons don't give you points. They're not added on there, but any of these artifacts you pick up will give you points. You can get a teddy bear. Here's a duck. Let's see if we can get something better here. Oh, look, we got a revolver. That one gives long range, so that can fire up to long. And you get a +2 bonus. Plus, this is worth 2 points at the end of the game. But that's it. That's a general idea how you're going to play Zone Wars and some of the different things here that come with the game. But like I said, there's going to be 2 different factions. They'll have 5 different units, and all of them have unique abilities and starting stuff, and they have all different stats on here. You also have the opportunity to custom make your own units here. You have to find your own miniature. But you can also take from the Zone Wars RPG, you can actually convert characters over into this world. So that's really cool too. So let's go ahead back up to the table here, and I'll give you my final thoughts on Zone Wars. So that was Zone Wars. Component quality in this game is amazing. Love the little miniatures in there. I'm going to get them painted here coming up. And I love all the nuances that you have in the different factions. It's just 2 factions, but you have 5 different models, and a lot of times you're going to be running squads of 3. So when you're running the squads of 3, you're going to have to pick and choose between the 5, and they all have their strengths and weaknesses. And their starting mutation and their starting equipment really give them a different, like, asymmetric feel, because that's really where their differences are coming from. That mutated, or that asymmetric mutation that they get that's specifically for them is really cool. Overall gameplay of this is fast. I'm really getting into miniatures games. I wasn't really into them much in the past, but I'm really enjoying this. And this is more like a sort of a lighter miniature game. Very easy to get into. You got that one ruler for the game there. That's all you need. You don't need to get a tape measure if you don't want. Rules are straightforward in this. Very easy to teach and get right into. And there's not very many gotchas in this game, so you don't have to worry about like weird rules, conflicts and stuff like that. Really well designed. Really happy with how they made this. And like I said, I really like the IP that this is set in, so that helps out a lot. If you like Zone Wars the RPG or played the video games before and would like to dabble in miniature games, this one is a great starter into miniature games. This is a game that you can, like, you know, I like to say, like, there's entry-level board games. This is like an entry-level miniature game. It's a game that you could play a lot. It has enough meat to it that it's going to keep, like, veteran miniature players invested in the game. But it's also simple enough that you're going to be able to have that barrier entry very low. You also don't need to go and assemble miniatures. You don't have to paint the miniatures in here. It's all ready to go in this box. You don't have to buy anything else. You're just ready to play, which I really appreciate. A lot of miniatures games out there, you don't get what you need to play the game in the starter set, or they don't even have a starter set. A lot of times a starter set just is like, hey, you can play this simple scenario, that is not really the full game, but you need to buy all this other stuff and set all this stuff up to play a full game. Not the case with this. This is great. Everything's ready to go. I think this is how miniature games should be, at least for starter sets and stuff. They should have everything that you need to play the game, full game, and this does. And the scenarios, and it has a good set of scenarios. I wish they would have had a little bit more scenarios in this, but that's okay. The scenarios are unique and neat, and you could play them over and over again if you want to, because it's more of what squads you picked and how you situate everything. So yeah, that's fine. But that's my thoughts on Zone Wars, the miniature games from Free League Games. Thank you for watching.